And this Israel Broadcasting Authority had a tight clamp on the radio, unlike the U.S. where we have the FCC and basically any church, any university can go, any church group can get a radio station. In Israel it was the opposite. 100% of the radio is government-owned, controlled. The checks of the news writers, their salary is paid by the government. The exact opposite in the U.S. The only station that comes near that in the U.S. is National Public Radio. But National Public Radio, one of the heads of it was here, and she said it's only 15% funded by the government. A lot of people don't know that. 15%, that's all. So the only station that you have in the U.S. that's completely government funded is Voice of America. And since the Congress saw that there might be influence, government influence in media, they said this is a radio station that will be for overseas Americans, and it has to be broadcast in a way that in continental America you cannot hear the station. Right? They were so concerned about that. Well, the Israeli government was not concerned about that. And all of the radio in Israel was government controlled, playing the government line, which was basically leaders who didn't have strength, didn't assert Jewish rights to our homeland, and the superpowers of the world, be it the United States, the European Union, Russia, the United Nations, trying to oppress the Jewish people and crush our rights to our homeland. And the Israeli government was submitting and was accepting that line, and the music we were playing was even also, we were subdued to foreign culture, so that before Ruth Sheva came in, the daily schedule of songs was like mostly foreign rock, and we didn't celebrate our own culture. Then Ruth Sheva came up, and the rabbi said, he has a right-hand man who's just a bulldozer of a personality. He's a war hero from the 73 war, walks around with a cane. I've been at the receiving end of that cane many times. He was my boss. He was elected to the Knesset. He's the head of the National Union Party. His name is Ketzela. He lives here in Beit El. Ketzela went out and decided that, okay, with Rav Zalman, with the rabbi, we're building the station, and the only way we could do it, to be within the confines of the law, was to be outlawed, meaning to be out of Israel's territorial waters. He went and bought a ship in Greece. We bought broadcasting equipment in Los Angeles. And any of you who know the map of Israel, 80% of Israel's population lives in the coastal plain along the coast. So you get a powerful signal coming out of a ship there outside of Israel's coastal, Israel's territorial waters. You're hitting 80% of the population. We did it. And Rav Zalman said, we're going to celebrate Israeli culture. We're going to raise the flag of Jewish songs, of Sephardic songs. You know what Sephardic is?
Yeah. Coming in.
So, the Jews that came from the Arab countries, and they have a whole culture of beautiful liturgy. Spain as well. And Hasidic music, which is the sort of the Ashkenazic, and Israeli rock. He says, let's take it all and just play that. That's the only thing we'll play on our station. Overnight, it became a hit. Overnight, it became a hit. And we started getting letters from the secular left-wing kibbutzes saying, we've been waiting for a station like this, because they decided to play Israeli folk songs from 8 to 12 in the morning. And they said, this is what we live on. This is like, we can't believe it. Hallelujah, right? They said, we thought you were going to be some settler station, banging your fist down and screaming, you guys are the greatest. And then in the afternoons, we would play the Sephardic music, the Oriental music. Let me just give you a taste of that here, to give you an idea of what we're talking about. When I hear this music, I can't stay still. Right? It just makes you want to dance, right? When my wife sees that I'm impressed, she just puts this on and we're dancing. And it's just this offbeat. This music was completely oppressed on Israeli radio. It had like 2 hours a week, and all the cab drivers and all the bus drivers are Sephardic. We put this on in the afternoons. We started getting letters saying Habibi, which is like a Sephardic way of saying you guys are the greatest. And the cab drivers would just stop, get out of there, and not only that, it caused a revolution in Israel that record labels or disc labels started popping up promoting.
That's right.
Yes, it's the guy. Hi, Moshe. I love him. So,
Baruch?
Yeah.
We have a question and I have a statement.
Okay, a question and a statement.
Where do you find Arut Sheva on the radio dial?
Okay. So, Arut Sheva was broadcasting on the radio from 1988. We started. It was after the first Intifada, which started in December 1987. The public radio was giving us such a bad. They were just turning the aggressors, the Arabs, into the the victims and the victims into the aggressors. And it was a terrible situation. We said we got to establish a radio station. So we did it. We were on the frequency. We had a frequency. And when Ariel Sharon 2, Ariel Sharon 1 was a good guy. Ariel Sharon 2, who destroyed the settlements instead of building them, he realized in 1995, in 2005, he cannot destroy the settlements as long as a Root Sheva has a radio station. So in 2004, he started putting the courts. He said, close these guys down. And they looked for all these technicalities, and they closed down the station. Our CEO, Ketzela, who's now a member of Knesset, saw this coming, and he opened up a national newspaper, which today is Israel's third largest circulation newspaper. So we're no longer on the radio dial, but we're on the internet, overseas and in Israel. And thank God today the internet is like in every home in Israel. Israel, I think, is one of the internet has permeated more homes in the internet than any other country in the world, percentage-wise. So people listen to us, they get our news, they get the emails that you're signing up for now, and that's the way we get out. But they closed us down. And that's the story. When people tell the truth, it hurts. It hurts. Protective windows, right? We need the protective windows because they throw rocks at us. And so we have plastic on the windows so it'll bounce back and hit them in the face. So I have 7 stitches in my head here because a rock came in and hit my head. So for whatever reason, I did it down in the Negev, in the southern part of the country. I was hitchhiking back. It's accepted in Israel to hitchhike, at least in my opinion. I was hitchhiking back. A Mack truck semi-trailer stops, picks me up. This Sephardic driver is driving the Mack truck semi-trailer. He's got the cigarettes rolled up in his sleeve. He says, "Come on, Habibi, get in," And got to get that word down, Habibi. Everyone is a Habibi. It's my beloved. He says, "Get in." So we're talking, and as we get closer to the shore, to Tel Aviv, he puts it on a Root Sheva. He's listening, and suddenly at 12 o'clock, we had a very famous 5-minute analysis segment. We got a lawyer named Aaron Popko. So we're talking, we're having a very lively conversation. A lot of heads, these guttural heads and iron. That's the way they talk. They do it. My wife is Sephardic. So the food, Sephardic food is the greatest. So
it's a mixed marriage, huh?
Yeah. So what does he say? He says, "Shut up." He says, "I got to hear this guy." I said, "Okay." He's a fan of his, what the guy said was a very simple thing. He's a lawyer. He's great at analysis. And he said, all we hear all the time on the government radio station is land for peace. That's the formula that's going to bring peace to Israel. We give them land, they give us peace. And they just hear that again and again and again. Land for peace, land for peace, land for peace, land for peace. He says, let's just think about that for 1 second. He says, that's a formula for peace? He says, let's think about the converse. They're saying, you give us land, we'll give you peace. But if we don't give them land, then what do we get? War. He says, this isn't a solution for peace. This is a veiled threat of war. When he just made that simple analysis, that what the national Israeli radio stations are calling a formula for peace, he said just nothing more than a veiled threat of war. We're being threatened for war. The truck driver started screaming. He says, "Did you hear these guys?" He says, "These guys are the Root Sheva. They're telling the truth. These guys have to they have to leave the country. No one else is saying this. I can't stand it." And I realized this guy was in this diatribe screaming again. I said, my God, we've touched such a raw chord in the nation. People are sick of being smothered. And that's what the Root Sheva did. It is a movement. It's not just a religious system. It's a movement of celebrating the rights of the Jewish people to their homeland, of taking our religious values and raising them up. I've heard religious values laughed at and scoffed at on the government. I feel embarrassed. How can they say these things? And we don't. We raise them up, and we're proud of them, and we're not embarrassed of them, and we shout them out and say them clearly with a sane voice. So the government realized these people are too strong, and they came and they closed down the radio station. But they'll never shut us up, and we'll never agree to shut up. And that's why we have these things going. So that's a sort of a general introduction to what we've been doing since 1988. And just let's move up 1/2 of a flight. We'll go to the newsroom.